Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about the story of Dragon Age the Veilguard and why it is such a miserable piece of work from Bioware. And right now, the player numbers, by the way, on Steam are dropping by quite a significant amount compared to, say, Baldur's Gate 3 as an example, which even to this day is still played by quite a few people. And I do believe that one of the significant elements behind that is the story. Now, there are people out there that are like, oh, the issue of this game is inclusion or diversity. It's like, oh, your character can be transgender or Tosh is non-binary, those kind of things. Let me tell you very clearly, if you think those are the principal issues with this game, far from it. Sure, you do have a diverse cast of characters, but every Dragon Age game has had that, one way or another. No, it's not those issues. Whatever you might think of them, whether or not you care one way or another, those are not the issues. There are far, far bigger problems with this game than that. So, if you even consider that to be a particular problem. Personally, I've never really cared one way or another on that subject. I just want a good story in the games I play. This game does not have a good story. It doesn't have a good universe. So let's consider this situation. The Lighthouse, our base of operations. And I really do think that Bioware with this was really inspired by God of War Ragnarok. It's like, oh, we have Sindri's house and it's in Yggdrasil and all that, so let's copy that, because they certainly were inspired in quite a few ways by God of War in God of War Ragnarok. At least I can see that in the gameplay. That's not bad, but the story elements here are, well, let's just put it, exceptionally questionable with respect to this game. What do I mean by that? This is in the Fade. Consider this. This entire thing is in the Fade. The crossroads, where we go to travel to different areas of Thedas, are also in the Fade. And the problem with this, every time we've entered the Fade in previous games, and we have ever since Dragon Age Origins, well, in Dragon Age Origins, we were knocked unconscious, and the Warden entered the Fade. But the body, our bodies, the Warden's physical body, the companion bodies, those were still there in the real world. Same in Dragon Age 2. In Inquisition, we did enter the Fade physically with the Inquisitor, but that was in an exceptional sort of circumstances, exceptional situation, and let's just say we wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. So the idea of just being in the Fade and that being fine is a fairly big problem. It's not a minor issue with it. And it's like, this is just the start of the problems that we have with this particular title. Because believe me, there are many other problems as well. So that's problem number one, the Fade aspect. But there is more, so much more with respect to this. Let's talk about the Blight. Because, oh boy, is there stuff to discuss with regards to Blight. They've retconned the Blight. So the Archdemons, the Black City, all of those aspects, those have been retconned. It's like the entire theme of this game is like the elves did it. Now, it's kind of worth pointing out something about the Fade, though, before I talk about the Blight. One of the things that happened in every other Dragon Age game, I'm not quite sure about Inquisition, but certainly happened in Origins. I think it happened in Dragon Age 2, but one of the things that's mentioned in Codex entries is that when you're in the Fade, you're supposed to see the Black City. Well, that's the Lighthouse. We're in the Crossroads. You can't see the Black City. And it's just like completely bizarre. Also, it's like bizarre thinking about like, oh, the Lighthouse is safe from the Elven Gods. And I'm like, how? That is never explained. Or maybe it's explained in a Codex entry, but it's just nonsense. So the way they handle the Fade is not great. But then we have the Blight. Now, beyond the retconning of archdemons, the blight, etc., which, even Dragon Age 2, when Corypheus was mentioned, when Corypheus was introduced, even that was already, hinted at. But here's the problem with regards to the blight. So you have the Venatori and the Elven gods using the blight, right? Well, the issue is the blight is a very destructive force. In every single Dragon Age game that we've had, it is mentioned and shown that blight corruption is a thing that really hurts. But apparently blight corruption is not really important for the Venatori, who are given Darkspawn by the Elven gods, and they're using that. I mean, yes, they fought alongside Corypheus, but it was never this level of ridiculousness. And that is a problem. That is not a minor, insignificant aspect with respect to this game. In fact, we have a quest relatively early on in the Metas Crossing where we see the effects of the blight, and then it's like, oh yeah, we just fight Darkspawn, and we're constantly engaging in the blight, and no one is at any point corrupted. Remember how in Origins we had ghouls, characters that became ghouls because of blight corruption, or we had your sibling, if you took them, in the Deep Roads being corrupted by the blight, or things in Inquisition. That is no longer relevant. So there's a lot of retconning with respect to that, and it is ridiculous. It is genuinely ridiculous. So the Flayed, the Blight, the Archdemons, the Elven Gods. We can talk about Dalish. We can talk about how, for instance, even Trespasser hinted at the idea, the Dalish or the elves in general would be split. Oh, do they support Solas? Do they support the Qunari? That could have been an interesting plot point. Every elf is oh, we hate Solas, and we hate the Elven Gods as well, which is ridiculous. Simply put, just flat out ridiculous. All that. Okay, then, every single decision that we've made in every single Dragon Age game, even with characters we meet in this game, be it Isabella, be it Morrigan, be it Dorian, none of the decisions we made have had any impact. It's never brought up any kind of thing. Dorian could be, could have had a really bad relationship with Inquisitor, could have had a great relationship with Inquisitor, could have been the romance option is recognized, but that's it. That is literally it. You don't have all the variations of that. It's even more frustrating when you have Simon Templeman, who voiced Loghain in Origins and Dragon Age Inquisition. He voices characters in this game, but they're minor and consequential characters. And even worse, Hawk's voice actor, male Hawk's voice actor, is voicing the first Warden in the game over here. So clearly they had the voice actors, or at least some of them. But again, none of the decisions, none of those variations of decisions, nothing we ever did in the series ever mattered. So they're retconning significant elements. They're ignoring other significant elements. And even in the game itself, the Demetas Crossing situation, we see the impact of the blight, but apparently it doesn't matter. We have areas in the game where we're shown what the impact is, but apparently it doesn't matter to our enemies. What's even crazier, and I think this is the point where I'm just this is bananas, is what they do with the Qunari. And they never properly explain it. They put it in codex entries. They never fully explain it, what exactly is going on. So we have the Anton schism, and basically what they're saying here, you have the discussion of what happened in Trespasser, right, with the Gatlock plot. But here's an interesting point. Even inconsistent in this game itself, the justification for basically the Qunari breaking away from, or the Anton breaking away from the Qun, is because those who had fought the Blood Mages of Winter had learned to fear all magic, and they wanted a fast solution. And that's the reason they turned against the Arishok, who, by the way, canonically is Sten. Just worth pointing this out. But here's the insane aspect about this. So they literally broke away from the Qun. As per this game's explanation, They tried to kill Sten, they didn't succeed, but the vast majority of the Qunari military rebelled, more or less, and launched an invasion of Fedas. Because of what had happened, more or less, in Inquisition, because of all of the things, because of Solus and all that. Then they ally the Venatori and the Elven Gods. Like, even Tosh, who, when you recruit her, them, whatever. Even when you recruit Tosh is just like, oh, they're hypocrites. I'm like, no, they're insane. They're freaking insane when you think about it. You look at the Qunari, every single plot point in every Dragon Age game, be it Origins, Dragon Age 2, Inquisition, emphasizes again and again and again that they really hate mages. And specifically, they hate blood mages, they hate Tevinter. They're allying with the biggest bastards in Tevinter who use blood magic like there's no tomorrow, the Venatori, and they ally with the blight of the Elven Gods, even though they don't really have a great perspective on the blight either. That is simply insane. Like, you cannot take this story seriously. Not when this story is telling you in one codex entry that this is the reason they broke away from the Qun, and then another codex entry that is saying, oh, there's various warlords, but you fight all of them anyway. There's no like, oh, there's some Antam who really hate the Venatori, and you might have an alliance with them or anything like that. There's no variations in that. They're all evil. They all side with the Venatori. That is, simply put, really insane. Like, there's no logic, rhyme, or reason. There's no sensical storytelling in this game at all. On so many plot points. That is the problem of Dragon Age the Veilguard compared to... Like, say what you will about Dragon Age 2. Say what you will about Inquisition. Say what you will even about Mass Effect Andromeda. Those stories made a heck of a lot more sense. And look, Bioware has had this habit of retconning certain elements, especially with like Dragon Age. But there was always a lot more consistency with the story and the lore than there ever was before. Like, consider the Horned Qunari. Qunari weren't horned when we met them in Dragon Age Origins, and we did meet a couple of them. Like, you bring Sten to the Fade, you see some of his companions, they're not horned. That doesn't make sense. I mean, we have a gameplay reason, we have a development reason. They wanted to make Qunari have horns, but they couldn't do it for technical reasons. But the way they retconned it, they ignored the Fade aspect, but they basically said, okay, you met Sten is special, he's a Qunari without horns, he's just a special example. Okay, there is no care, no interest in preserving what had been before. I've read many fan fictions in Dragon Age, in Mass Effect, and many other universes that treat the subject matter with a lot more love and care and respect for the original material. I believe there was a developer interview where one of the developers, or one of the lead developers, didn't know who Zevran was. Keep in mind, in Dragon Age Inquisition, Zevran was leading like a civil war against the Antivan Crows. Never brought up, probably never will. Oh, let's talk about Isabella. You meet Isabella, who had you could give her to the Arashok, you could romance her, so many choices on that, and it would have been an interesting conflict, like if Hawke's decisions would have had some impact over here. But none of that matters. It's a crappy story that's inconsistent with everything that's been before, and it's inconsistent with itself. Those are the real issues over here. Not the voice acting or the characters, the companions, the diversity, inclusivity, whatever. Those are not the problems over here. It is those kind of things that I just mentioned over here that are the real significant issues in this particular title. And you can't really take the story seriously. Like, there are some moments, but it's just really, really badly handled. I'll just end with this. Am I surprised necessarily by this? I wish I could say I was, but I'm going to say it as bluntly as I possibly can. I played Dragon Age Trespasser, and I was already pissed off with Dragon Age Trespasser, how Trespasser ignored many of the things we already did in Inquisition, because it did. And also, I gotta say, Patrick Wicks is not necessarily as good of a writer as some people made him out to be. He can handle characters in certain moments, but writing a universe... He took the piss on Dragon Age Inquisition and Trespasser. The DLC of Inquisition is like a shit show, to put it mildly, in terms of story. Like Jaws of Hakon and Descent, who he was part of. Yeah, those are a disaster as well. Don't get me started on so many things that were flagged, ignored in Trespasser in terms of like story decisions or anything like that, right? So that's the thing. Like, I feel Patrick Weeks is the kind of guy who cares about certain things, but handling a universe like this, look, one can have whatever opinion they want about David Gator. I think we can all agree on one thing and one thing alone. He would not have done this. Like, in a million years, I would not have seen David Gator take the piss on his own universe in this way. Compared to whoever is responsible for the piss-poor storytelling that we have over here. Don't get me wrong, there are certainly some very, very questionable pieces of writing that David Gator was responsible for, like Orsino in Dragon Age 2, where he's like, the gameplay team was like, oh, we want another boss fight, so it's like Gator just added that in for whatever stupid reason. And it was handled really poorly. But Gator did have an idea and a clear understanding of how to write the story and characters in that story very well. Or Mary Kirby, for instance, who handled quite a bit of Logain, for instance, and other characters who was basically thrown out of Bioware when they reduced staff. The people like, it's telling that one of their best writers or two of their best writers, like you think of David Gator, you think of Mary Kirby, you think of Dragon Age, and you think of like some of the best moments in the series from a storytelling perspective. Mary Kirby and David Gator, among others, and there were others, handled a lot of that.
But I get to help.
And they're gone. Both of them are gone. And this is what we're left with. Like, this piece of crap game is what we're left with, ultimately. And, you know, people wanted to pretend, like, I think it's very telling to say this, that I think it was the director or one of the lead developers for Dragon Age of Veilguard that said, oh, I don't think Anthem was as bad. Well, if you genuinely believe that and you're one of the people in charge and you don't realize how horrible... sorry, not Anthem, Andromeda. I'm being a bit too harsh. Like, Anthem was a complete shit show. No, he was saying... they were saying... I don't remember if it's a he or she, whatever. But they were saying that they didn't think the... Like, this is what I read. They didn't think that Mass Effect Andromeda was as horrible as people made it out to be. Yeah, maybe it wasn't. I enjoyed it more than other people, but to pretend Mass Effect Andromeda had a great storyline, for instance, yeah, like, for instance, ignoring that, like, the issues of Andromeda's story was just garbage. And then it's like, you have someone that's apparently in charge of this game that doesn't understand that this is how you get this piece of shit. So... Anthem was a disaster, Andromeda was a disaster. This game is seeing a significant drop in player numbers on Steam. And I gotta tell you, as a content creator, you know, I've had games that came out and I played and I didn't necessarily get great views on them. You know, it happens sometimes. But with a game like this, like the lack of interest that I'm just seeing across the board on YouTube with this game for videos is like very, very telling about how people feel about this. And those people that are probably, you know, trying this game out and quitting and all that, they're probably not getting very far in it, right? They're not seeing how awful it really, really is when you put, you know, some time and effort and try and really make, you know, sense of the story. There is no sense. It actually gets worse the more you play, the more you discover things, and you realize what the hell they were doing with this. I have no idea. Like, it looks cool. Sure. Credit to the people that handle the engines, the technical graphics, the gameplay, the combat. Great job. But the story? Who the fuck wrote this? Exactly, and why did they write this like this? So, I suspect my conclusion on this, do I think this will kill Bioware? No. I do not believe that. I don't believe that because I think Electronic Arts has already invested a significant amount of money and effort in the next Mass Effect game, so they're probably going to deliver that. But make no mistake on this, if the next Mass Effect game is even a quarter of the piece of garbage that this game is, on a story level, regardless of how good the gameplay is, and I suspect it will be better from a gameplay perspective, like, this is much better than Inquisition, and it's much better than every other Dragon Age game from a gameplay perspective. But if that game is even a quarter of the pile of dog shit that we got here, that's it. Like, that's probably when they pull the plug. But, you know, who knows? Maybe the gaming media will just bend over backwards again for Bioware and pretend that they release great games. And, you know, it's annoying when this kind of stuff happens. It's like, oh, it's just a pile of hate. No, it's not hatred. Yes, you know, you have clickbait shit like Asmongold making a video like, oh, you're forced to become a transgender character. Yeah, cut the crap. But here's the thing. That is not the problem here. That is not even a tenth of the problem, a fraction of the problem, even 1% of the problem, if it's even a problem at all. What I mentioned, that is the freaking problem. That is the reality. So, yeah, you can preside over another disaster or just call it quits, really. Because honestly, at this point, I don't even want them to make another Dragon Age game. Like, as far as I'm concerned, they've already ruined the series. Like, they ruined so much of the series. What the hell was that animation, anyway? But they've already ruined the series. I think I'd rather not see another Mass Effect game at this point, if this is how they're going to handle things going forward. Invent whatever crap they want. Ignore everything that was before, because it doesn't matter. Costin signing out.